Hello, and welcome to this edition of People in Transition. I'm your host, Bob Gerst. I've been hiring and mentoring executives, frontline employees, and job seekers for nearly 40 years through a host of transitions, some difficult, but most very good. This experience has given me a bird's eye view on a variety of trends, economies, industry disruptors, and transitions, big and small. It also brought me into contact with the thought leaders and decision makers you need to meet. Imagine knowing exactly what to do next and how to know it's time to make your big job change. We all know transitions can be scary, but it doesn't have to be. And it's even fun when you have actionable strategies and proven tactics to achieve the future you want. We'll share with you the tools and skills that can take your dreams to your next great job. So if change is on your horizon, you won't want to miss this discussion. Also, please subscribe to this podcast so you won't miss any future episodes. Welcome to another insightful episode of People in Transition podcast. This week, we are thrilled to introduce Phil Davis, an exceptional executive career coach, recruiter, and yes, music fan and expert. And Phil, you have to be my first set of quadruplets where you have three sisters that I've ever interviewed. So I'm really excited about that. Phil, his passion for helping individuals and organizations thrive resonates in every note of his professional journey. Known for his signature tune into process, Phil has empowered over 1,000 career professionals to transform frustration into fulfillment and uncover their unique value in today's competitive job market. Whether you're feeling stuck or just need a boost in your job search, this episode is packed with actionable strategies to amplify your impact and accelerate your path to success. Phil brings a wealth of expertise from his dynamic career, which began in recruiting and HR roles at small TV networks and evolved into a thriving coaching practice titled fulPHILLment Solutions. From navigating his own corporate layoffs to saving companies thousands of dollars in HR costs, Phil has seen every scale of the career symphony, including the off-key moments of anxiety and doubt. Through it all, his mission has remained the same: to help mid and senior level professionals gain clarity, confidence, and control over their careers. Today, he shares practical tips to make job searching less daunting, from mastering your resume to leveraging LinkedIn and networking like a pro. In this episode, Phil's energy is as contagious as his insights are transformative. Whether you're exploring new opportunities, pivoting careers, or looking to fine-tune your professional brand, Phil's holistic, people-first approach will inspire you to find your own fulfillment and create the results you deserve. So get ready to take notes, because this is one conversation that will leave you motivated to tackle your career challenges head on and tune into the opportunities waiting for you. Good morning, Phil. How are you?
Oh, I'm great, Bob. Thank you for the lovely, lovely introduction. How are you doing today?
I am doing great today. Phil, my listeners love my signature question, which is, if you think back when you were a child, what was it that you wanted to be when you grew up?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Well, for me, and we've talked about this backstage a little bit with the pre-flight checklist that we did before we got on here. I always wanted to be a pilot when I was younger. I always wanted to get out there and to fly people and to really just get people where they need to go in their travel destinations and stuff like that. Of course, that never happened, right? So for me, I guess variations on a similar theme. I've always had a passion to help and to serve others. And I think that's kind of like what got me into the recruiting HR space 11 plus years ago. And currently what I'm doing now with fulPHILLment, really helping to serve people and whatever career journey they have and stuff like that. That's a really good question.
Tell our listeners why you feel qualified to discuss career transitions. Can you share an experience where you've been a part of career transitions?
Yeah, absolutely. Coming from the corporate space in recruitment HR, I definitely have seen a lot. I've worked in various industries, right? So I've worked in entertainment, broadcast media space. I've worked in manufacturing. I've worked in IT technology in a call center environment. And I've had a lot of experience, not just on the recruitment side, but also on the other side where companies that I worked with fortunately had to work with workforce reductions and things like that. And so one of the lovely examples I love to bring in that avenue, if you will, is when I used to work talent acquisition over at Brill, which is a big manufacturing company. One of the plants that they had there was going to be shutting down a few months after I got in. And of course, one of the things that we had to inform those employees of was, their roles were going to be impacted and affected. And so one of the things that I did when I was there was I worked closely with HR and said, well, why don't we just kind of create an internal career fair where we can try to retain and save as many employees as possible, right? Those folks who are being impacted in their roles and those folks that actually performed and did really well in their careers. And in that time, really one of the reasons the career fair was so successful is we were able to save roughly 40% of a staff of about 200 production workers and employees, and the remaining folks were able to secure other job opportunities. So for me, that gives you a kind of a very specific example of helping folks in time of need, or hey, if they've got impact, their roles are going to be impacted, to help them transition either internally at companies inside or helping them to try to find new opportunities outside, and just really bringing the right people together and just showing that empathy and that sense of servant leadership. I love what I do there in that regard, and I love just being able to kind of listen really, really deeply to all the clients that I have on the coaching side here, understand their situation, whether they're laid off, whether they're in a current role and they're wanting to make a career pivot or change their tune into a new role. Just being able to show that empathy and really to help guide them on a holistic manner to really bring out their best value and to showcase their true potential in the market.
Phil, that leads us, I think, nicely to my next question, which is, I read just the other day, it's important that individuals take charge of their career. What does that mean to you, and how does a person do that?
Yeah, very, very good question. Taking charge and ownership of our career. I mean, we've all heard before, you are the captain of your ship and you're the CEO of your career, those common statements that we have, right? That can sometimes be easier said than done. I think when it comes to being the CEO of our career and taking ownership, I think a lot of it really just begins with mindset, right? Like having the right mindset to be able to say to ourselves, hey, I can do this. I will do this, especially, if we're going through a layoff or if we're going through a hard time in our career or job search journey, it becomes very easy to have, negativity come across our minds, or, periods of frustration or periods of anxiety, if you will. So if we can really bring our minds to become positive by either doing hobbies or taking some time away from technology, that's a big one that I like to do, because technology is great, but it can be very noisy right out on social media, and just really finding ways where we can come back to that natural, peaceful state that we have to really help us clear our minds and to really bring positivity into our minds. Then we can move forward and come up with a plan and come up with strategies where, okay, do I want a new career? Do I want to get promoted in my current employer? Do I want to completely pivot altogether? We can come up with these strategies, right? When we have a good, clear mindset, and then move forward and act upon those strategies so that we can then hopefully achieve the results that we deserve. So it really does start with the mind and really getting it attuned to be positive, and to be encouraging. And that's really one thing that, I strive here, both personally and professionally, is to just be as positive as possible every day. And I do that over here. I like to work out in the morning. That's a big thing I like to do. I like to run a lot. I like to do music, as you know, Bob, as well. And just to try to find little things that really bring me joy and fulfillment on a personal level so that I can help folks professionally.
Are there any other practices that you would suggest someone that's going through that career transition roller coaster that they experience that could help them keep that clear mindset and be positive?
Yeah, absolutely. Not only are hobbies are important and finding things individually that bring you joy and fulfillment, but also too from a networking perspective. I say this all the time, right? really surrounding yourself with people who know your true potential, right? Whether that's family members, whether that's friends, whether that's professional colleagues, folks in your, in your network on LinkedIn or other, other social platforms, going to, in-person networking events, finding folks who know your value, know your impact. So when you do have experiences or moments of doubt, uncertainty, anxiety, etc., you can reach out to those people who love you unconditionally and who know the impact that you have on them, and vice versa. One of the tips that I like to give is, for me, at my desk right here on the top shelf, I've got a piece of paper. And on that piece of paper, I've got about 10 people in my life. They're random, friends, family members, just a list of those names of about 10 folks in my life who I know are going to be there for me no matter what happens, no matter if I get laid off in another job, whether I've got something personal coming in my life, or whether I'm going through something, right? And I've got some personal stuff I'm going through right now that's, got me kind of sidetracked a little bit. But I can go to any of these 10 people and I can reach out and say, hey, can we talk for a sec? Can we have a coffee? Can we catch up, right? Can I just tell you what's going on? And so I think that's really been meaningful, for me. And I think one really huge thing that I encourage people to think about and to do as well is find a list of people that you can reach out to if you need help, and do that.
Phil, that really leads, I think, to a discussion regarding networking in general. Can you talk a bit about the role that networking plays during career transitions, and how do you suggest I build a stronger professional network?
Yeah, networking, right? It's not so black and white of a thing, right? I mean, no, networking, I kind of like to break the word down into two, right? You've got net. So if you think about the word net, N-E-T, like a spider web, right? It's beautifully constructed, right? If you go outside and you go check a spider web out there, 9 times out of 10, the web's going to be almost perfectly symmetrical. It's going to look beautiful. That spider has strategically placed every part of its web in a way that is perfectly in tune. So that's the net side of it, where we're really wanting to connect with quality connections, not quantity, because I don't think it matters how many followers you have on social media. I don't think it matters the number of likes or impressions or comments you get on there. It's all about the quality connection that you have, strategic quality connections. And then the working side of the word is it takes work. It's not a one and done thing where, all right, hey, we're going to just be out here for once a month and that's it. It takes constant work. But I'd say too, start small. So for example, if you're out on LinkedIn, be on LinkedIn for a couple minutes a day. You don't have to be on LinkedIn every single day, 24/7, 365. If you're on there 10, 15 minutes a day, engaging with people's content, reaching out one-on-one to folks, getting to know who they are and understanding their value and their impact, and showing a sense of curiosity to what they're bringing to the table. I mean, that's huge. We see all the time, right? We're job seekers. They'll reach out and they'll say, hey, help me find a job and stuff like that, which is good. But I think there's a much more effective way to really strike and start conversations with people. One of the things I love to tell folks to do is, come up with some icebreakers, right? So if you're wanting to reach out to somebody on LinkedIn or on social, look at their profile in detail, look at their content. If they're posting content out there, find a post that they're doing that maybe you resonate with, start to comment on that, and maybe reach out to them and say in a message when you're sending a connection request, say, hey, I loved your post about recruiting and the candidate experience and that you've got a passion for it. Just kind of bring out those conversations there. And then, ask later for some help, right? I think a lot of times when it comes to networking, it's all about, supporting each other. It's not a one-way street where, hey, I need support, but you're also adding value and support to the other person as well.
Phil, I'd like to talk about tools or resources that you would recommend someone who's looking for that new job opportunity. And as a part of that discussion, maybe you can tell us a bit more about the tune-in process that you have created.
Yeah, tools and resources. I mean, I'm not the kind of person that's going to say, oh, I think you should go read this book or read that book. I'm much more kind of open-minded when it comes to tools and resources. I think the biggest thing that folks should do if they're looking for, resources, when I think of resources, I think of people, right? Like finding people out on social, whether it's me or somebody else, find people that you can really dig deep into some of the value that they're bringing to the table. That's one thing. I think the other thing too is there are a plethora of articles, newsletters, video reels, you name it. There's so many things out there that you can do. And it can become overwhelming to really find just a few resources that you want to look for. But I think what's important is, don't overwhelm yourself and find every single thing out there, because it's going to be a lot of information at one time. Find things that really resonate with you and that you can learn about, and take it one day at a time, right? And one step at a time, one resource, one thing at a time, because it can be so overwhelming. So for me over here, I do have a free job search online course. It's on my website at www.fulPHILLment, fulphillment.com. It's kind of an introductory course where I go in and I help those job seekers, those folks who are watching it, to kind of come up with different unique ways to brand themselves kind of on resume, on LinkedIn profile, but also to help kind of give them a sense of motivation. So if they're stuck in their job search and they need a little quick pick me up, that course is something that I always tell folks, hey, go check this out. It's about a 15 to 20 minute course, video watch. You can watch it as many times as you want. So that's something that I like to do there and tell people about.
Phil, what have you seen is the most common misconception people might have about career transitions, and how can you help coach them to overcome that misconception?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception out there is probably that we think there's one way to job search, right? But there's really more than one way. So if you go back maybe even 5-10 years ago, right? The way the job market is now is very, very different. I kind of like to say before COVID, right? The job market is very, very different now, where it's still an employer-driven market. We're hoping to see a turn where it's going to be candidate-driven again and things are going to turn around. But there's a lot of competition out there. I think the misconception is, hey, we need to just apply to a position and hope we get an interview, which still, applying to a role directly, I still think is very important. But as you said earlier too, there's that aspect of networking that we need to also think about, right? Where if there's a company that we really want to work for and there's a position they have available, applying is great, but we also want to try to find recruiters, hiring managers at those companies and reach out to them, express our interest. But I think most importantly, sharing our story and our value to them clearly, concisely, in a way that's compelling. Because as we know, hiring managers and recruiters and folks like that, we're all very busy. We have a lot going on. We see a lot of different resumes that come in, and there are hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of applicants for one particular role. So we've got to find a way to stand out in a way that's going to be compelling enough that that hiring manager, that recruiter is going to want to interview us, right? So there's an aspect of networking that we need to do. But then also too, from a personal branding perspective, which I know one of your previous podcast guests, Victoria Michaels, is huge on, and I resonate with her on this. I have to give her a shout out with personal branding. And you want to get out on social, start commenting on people's posts. And if you're comfortable too, share your story on content. Get some posts out there, share your value. If there's an article or something you read that resonates with you, share that, right? If you're comfortable going on video and you want to post some content on some tips and tricks, in your field of expertise, go ahead and do that. Because one of the things that I like to remind people of is if you do social media stuff, there are more people looking at your content or your comments than you think there are. People are watching, and it's very important to kind of think of content creation and networking in addition to just, standard applications. I believe that's really going to kind of well round your job search strategy.
Phil, you've had your own personal transitions throughout your career so far. What would you say is the biggest one or two lessons that you've learned from that personal transition?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the biggest one for me, and I had mentioned this earlier, because I've been through a lot. I've been through 3 layoffs consecutively in my career. I've been through a lot. And in those moments where I felt like a failure, or I felt like stuck and confused and, okay, what's Phil going to do next? How's he going to survive? But also really, how is he going to still impact other people? Because I had huge doubts about that when I got laid off. Like, oh, was I good enough? I just surrounded myself with family and close friends. And that's really when, after my 3rd layoff, I got on LinkedIn. And initially I got on social and LinkedIn, even though I had my LinkedIn account for years. I got on there in hopes of trying to find another job like most people. But instead, I said, well, let me get out there and try to help other people who are in need, people that maybe lost their jobs during COVID and they were just struggling to get into a new role. And that's kind of where fulPHILLment organically was created. It was just kind of through a quirky little hashtag I had on there, because at the time there were people that said, you need a hashtag, you need something that people are going to remember you by. But at the time I'm like, well, what am I going to do? So fulPHILLment really came to be as a simple little hashtag. And then like most entrepreneurs, I started doing pro bono work and helping people for free. And then I became very busy that I'm like, well, you know what? I think I could maybe make a business out of this whole thing. And lo and behold, it just came to be about 3.5 years ago, the business. And really was just my true calling was to really become an entrepreneur, but to do it for other people and to just give them the experiences that I've learned in corporate HR and recruiting and to help coach them and guide them along their job search or their career based on the lens that I have gained in my corporate HR recruiting career for, all these years. So for me, it's been just giving myself the courage to ask for help when I needed it by family and friends and stuff like that. And really just inspiring people through my own journey, my own fulfillment, and just being that servant leader. Because at the end of the day, and this being a HR executive yourself, it's all about other people and their success and helping them recognize their potential. Because if they can truly see that in themselves, they're going to succeed. And that's truly what it's all about. It's about others and their success.
Phil, other than asking others for help, how do you coach people to get over the shame and oftentimes guilt that they feel after they've lost a job?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for them and really for me, it's really taking that step back and digging deep into their true value, right? If there's a client that I have and they know they want to go into a marketing manager position and they've done either a completely different career opportunity like in HR, or if they've done something like if they've been a marketing specialist, but they want to get into a higher level role or something like that, it's really helping them define some of those achievements that they've done in their career that either A, they may not have on their resume or their LinkedIn, but B, it could be something that they've maybe never thought of before as an actual career achievement that they've done. So for example, I had a client not too long ago. We talked about, he's a marketing client. And so beforehand, he talked about kind of some of the things that he's done in his marketing positions over at a media company. He said, oh, I've done this, I've done that, I've done blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you've done these things, but what's been the impact of the things that you've done in your current position, right? You had to think about that for a second. I'm like, all right, well, so if you're marketing, right, you're thinking about brand awareness, you're thinking about impressions. Are you bringing in more traffic to the social media sites for the company? Are you bringing in revenue? What are the things that you're doing there? And we're able to kind of dig deep with him to help him define those achievements. And after that call, the light bulb click turned on, all that kind of stuff. And he was able to realize, oh, I have done a lot more than what I thought I did. And so it's that kind of change in tune, if you will, that have helped clients like him and other folks to really understand their potential. Because the thing is, if you understand your true potential out there through your career and achievements and things like that, then you can go out into the marketplace and you can share your story, set the tone, and in my case, sing it out, obviously, to those recruiters and those hiring managers. And it's definitely easier said than done for sure. But if you have a career coach or if you have a family member or somebody that you can talk to about that and really dig deep into it, I think that's going to be very effective.
Phil, you mentioned personal brand. Maybe you can give your definition of what that is and how do I develop that if I'm starting out or if I don't think that I have that personal brand yet in the marketplace?
Really good question. Personal branding, we all have one, right? Whether we think we do or we don't, we all do. And I think when it comes to personal branding, one of the things I like to say, especially like on LinkedIn, is you show your professional brand with personality. One of the ways that I do it here on LinkedIn and stuff is, I used to not do it this way, but I started doing it now because it just kind of goes into my tune-in process pretty well. I study music in college. And so one of the things that I love to post about is, music videos. So every Monday I'll post, a music singing Monday video or something like that. And over the holidays is when I really brought that back into fruition on my social platforms. And yeah, it's like, okay, if it's Phil singing this or Phil playing the piano and doing that, what does that have to do with a personal brand or what does that have to do with career coaching, right? But a lot of it is really one and the same. It's like music is the universal language that brings people together. And so with my brand, it's all about having people take those few minutes of time, really listen to the music, but also, listen to the beauty that it brings in. And in that moment, it's giving that person that sense of a feeling and release. So that's why I do the music videos on Monday. And plus people were asking about it because they're like, Phil, bring them back again. I'm like, oh, should I really do it? I'm like, yes, I need to do it because my audience wants it. What I'm trying to say in this personal branding question is you're able to share your value and your impact, but also listen to what your audience is looking for. And so for me, it's, music videos for sure on Mondays, but then I also do like a tip video, like tip Tuesdays or tip Thursday. I'm also presenting some job search tips on video, some advice that I'm going to give people about like interviewing or resume help or things like that. Because at the end of the day, my brand is about my audience. It's not about me, Phil, at all. It's about impacting other people. So I think if you go into it that way, you can have a very unique brand that's going to be in tune with, your own value, but it's really going to resonate with people out there.
Phil, I don't know if you've had any clients that you've coached on this, but I do know that there are some hiring managers that love to use silly questions. If you were an animal, what kind of animal would you be? Why are manhole covers round? Those kinds of things. If I'm in an interview and I get one of these questions, how do you coach your clients to respond to them?
That's a good one. It's the whole, if I'm a dinosaur, which one would I be and why? It's like, I'd be a T-Rex because I take over the world, right? like that's, yeah, right. There's a prime example. Like that's literally, I'll tell my client, hey, if they ask the dinosaur question, answer exactly like that. And you could be the CEO of the company someday. Oh, no, but that's a really good question. When I was in corporate recruiting HR, I never really asked these kind of questions, but they are kind of curveball because it's like, all right, well, what are they thinking? Like, do I need to answer it a certain way or whatever? And I think for me, it's just really being honest with yourself, right? So if I have a question that comes across my desk and it's one of those questions like, all right, well, if you were a musical instrument, what would you be and why? Like for me, if it was aside from voice, if I had to answer like an actual instrument thing, I would just be myself and say, well, I'd be a clarinet. Like I already know how to play the clarinet. I did marching band and clarinet for a couple of years, and it's a beautiful instrument and it sounds great. And it's a wooden reed instrument, and I love the complexities of the clarinet and being able to like learn something very quickly. But tying that into like your value, I think is so important. If you get a curveball question, make sure you're honest about it, but really trying to bring in an example of how you either learn quickly in it, like I did with clarinet, or how you can, add value to the business in that way. We've heard the one before, right? I forget what TV show it was or what movie it was, but there's a sales guy that comes out, gets a pen out of his jacket or whatever and says, hey, sell me this pen, right? We've heard that one before. And I guess the interviewee had to like come up with like a 1 or 2 minute pitch about, why I should buy this pen from you and, et cetera, things like that. As long as you're honest, I think, and as long as you can really tie in value, I think that's important.
Are there any books or other resources that you would recommend to someone who is going through their own personal transition?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I mentioned earlier too, I have a free online job search course on my website at www.fulPHILLment.com. So that's something, it's about a 25-minute video that folks can watch, and that really helps people to get unstuck if they feel like their resume is stuck or if their job search is stuck altogether. They can watch that. They can check that out for sure. Some other kind of resources I do is, I do offer like a LinkedIn Live on fulPHILLment LinkedIn Live, if you will, on my LinkedIn page. I do those typically every Thursday to kind of bring out some job search nuggets and stuff like that. There are also other creators out there in the recruiting space that folks can follow and things like that. But there's a lot of different resources. But as the ones I have, my course on my website would be one for folks to check out.
Phil, we have gone through so many great ideas, tips, and techniques that you've shared. If our listeners can only remember 2 or 3 key items and take them away and implement them next week, what would those 2 or 3 items be?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that one of the big ones that I would say is to, really just get out there, right? Get out there on LinkedIn, get out there on social media, start to really network strategically and effectively. Find content creators, find people that you want to connect with, that you want to engage with their content on. I mean, the world is your oyster, and I think social media is a huge part of that, where you can just really get out there. Take it one step at a time. Don't get out there 24/7, 365, like I said earlier. Take 10 minutes a day or something like that. Really get out there and start to network. Go to in-person networking events, if that's your thing. I think those are really powerful too, where you can get to like know people and understand their stories and things like that. And then the other thing too is I think, set some time aside if you are feeling stuck in your career or in your job search. Really just kind of take some time away, do some things that fulfill you and lift you up, get some hobbies out the way, clear your mind, and really write down or type out just your career journey. That'll help you to find clarity in your career and kind of what you want to go into next. And if you feel like you're stuck, and you need some help, obviously I'm here, but find somebody who can guide you and give you a little bit of support as well.
Phil, I know that I can speak for our listeners that you have already helped so many just by doing this podcast and all the other free advice, support that you provide on LinkedIn. I want to say thank you for that. It's been great talking with you.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for having me, Bob. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for listening. We're working in unprecedented times. The purpose of these episodes is to give you the support and critical tools to adjust with the changing marketplace. I'll continue to introduce you to guests who have successfully survived their own obstacle course and can share useful information. If today's message was helpful to you, please share it on your social media. Your review and rating helps get this to more people. Also, if you have questions or podcast ideas for future conversations, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Change is constant. The more prepared you are for it, the better and easier the change will occur. Thank you again. This is your host, Bob Gerst. See you at our next episode.